Round two for PLExpress for the 23-24 season, and lots to discuss. Brighton are brilliant. We're going to start there. Manchester United have some big question marks after what we've seen from their first two games. What do we think about Pochettino's time at Chelsea? It's obviously early days, but we have to discuss that. And we're going to be talking about Arsenal, as well as Manchester City and Kevin De Bruyne's absence. But let's start with Brighton, because what a brilliant start it's been for them, Janusz. They are top of the Premier League. In their opening two games, they've scored 8 goals. They're showing life without Alexis McAllister and now Moises Caicedo. So far, isn't so difficult. We're seeing tweets like this, Brighton bubble, after Moises Caicedo's debut for Chelsea didn't quite go according to plan. Obviously, very early days, new club. Not going to go too hard on him. But are Brighton going to finish in the top 4 this season?
Already with those questions, right? 2 games in. And look, I mean, I don't. It's hard with a team like Brighton because look what they've done, right? And it's, you know, Roberto De Zerbi has said, right? I mean, you can take our players, but you can't take our spirit and our soul, and that's exactly what they've showed. And they've showed exactly that because they will never change the way they play, which in a way is their downfall because it's impossible to play like they do. The high pressing, the commitment of 7 or 8, 9 players, winning the ball quickly. What they've done, I mean, their statistics are the same as last season at the top of the league in almost everything, and yet look where they ended up. So I mean, it's so hard because, you know, I've thought about it, right? And I say, okay, maybe I'll say something super smart that, you know, nobody else has said it. And of course you can, because I don't know why they won't, but they just won't. They won't be in the top 4 because I think it's such a demanding way of playing that over the course of the season and at Europe and all this, it's just going to be nearly impossible. I think that's the only reason for that. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be knocking at the door, and it doesn't mean that we're going to be saying that they're better than some of the teams in the top 4. But playing great and playing well, you know, doesn't mean that you can get there. That's how difficult it is in the Premier League. I mean, look, Mitoma, I mean, sensational first goal. I mean, the individual effort is incredible. He continues to push on, right, from what he's done last season. Solly March, who isn't happy, by the way, for Solly March, had an injury that took him away for quite a while and came back strong at the, you know, last season, and 2 goals here already and again. So that's positive. But I just think that not just the way they play, but how demanding Roberto De Zerbi is. When you buy into it, when you're with him, it's sensational. When you're not, it's not an easy life. And so I just don't think they're going to end up there, but I'm going to be cheering for them. And I'm going to, you know, because you know what? I mean, people want to watch them. This is how good they're playing. Mm-hmm. By the way, I thought he should be Italian manager, right? It looks like, you know, it's Spalletti, but
yeah.
Can you imagine Roberto De
Zerbi? Well, actually, it leads me to my next point, and the fact that you have mentioned Mitoma as well, Janusz, because it does feel as though, as good as they are, they're going to keep showcasing how good they are. De Zerbi's even said we're having to play in different ways now without Caicedo, so he's showing his adaptability too. But Mitoma, it feels like with what we're seeing now, he's going to be the next one that's going to be lured away. And you've just mentioned the manager yourself, that you thought he might be going for that Italian job or be picked and lured away for that. Is that what's going to happen here? Is it only a matter of time till more players and potentially the manager himself's getting taken elsewhere?
Absolutely. I mean, there's an end to this, but I think if you look at De Zerbi, I think he understands that. I mean, time is on his side, isn't it? Right? I mean, it just. If I had to guess, he's been approached, probably said no. There's a job or 2 that he truly wants, and by playing and doing what he's done with you know, a small club, because we have to call Brighton that. You know, he knows that call is going to come, and it's just a matter of time. Because obviously, I mean, look, I mean, when he was at Sassuolo, obviously we didn't know much about him, but we knew the way Sassuolo played. Then all of a sudden, I think we all surprised. Where did he go to? Shakhtar, I think. I mean, obviously. Was it Shakhtar? I think it was Shakhtar.
I think it was Shakhtar, yeah.
To Shakhtar Donetsk, obviously, you know, and then the war and everything else had to change probably because he would have wanted to stay there. We all know how they played. They've had all the money in the world, all the Brazilian players that eventually moved on. But Shakhtar Donetsk was a significant club in Europe in the Champions League, which obviously showcased what Roberto De Zerbi can do. So I think it's just a matter of time, of course, for players or not. But Roberto De Zerbi, I don't know which club that is, but there's probably one or two, only two clubs where he says, okay, I know exactly how my coaching career is going to develop, and my next step is this. And it's probably, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and in the Premier League, I don't know if there's a club that he would say, whoa, you know what I mean? Unless it's a struggling, I think if Chelsea came calling, perfect club, immediately he changes the mentality of that club. But I also think it has to be an environment where he feels people are listening to him. And from that standpoint, I don't know if I'll go back on that, because I don't know if Chelsea's the best environment for that.
Yeah, but you can see why the link would be made. All right, let's talk about Manchester United. We actually didn't get too much time to last week. We have to this week. We're going to talk about 3 players that they should offload right now. And it doesn't really necessarily have to be the way that it's actually working and what reports are stating for you, Janusz. It can be you playing sporting director, you having a say in this, and 3 players that you would say, okay, time's up here. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Well, look, I'm going to stay away from first and foremost. I don't think Manchester United has done a great job. This is a Manchester United. They haven't strengthened to a degree that Manchester United should. Yes, there are 3 players that came in terms of Onana, Mason Mount, and Højlund. But as we've seen from the first 2 games, they need a lot more, and they need it very, very quickly. The reason I'm having problem with getting rid of players is because they're not deep. I continue to say, even with those 3 players, they're not deep. Here was the issue, and you and I have talked about in the first show, or even in our previous show, is that I feel as if this is the same team from last year. Not much difference yet, right? And I think that Erik ten Hag has squeezed everything possible he could last year. We've said it. How does he do it better this year? And I think we've seen the first 2 games, and we start to worry a little bit. It's only 2 games, but I don't know how. So I don't know if I'd be getting rid of people, because that squad is paper thin, in my opinion, in terms of true quality. But if I had to, I let go Maguire. I feel bad. Look, this is a former captain, the most expensive defense. Well, not anymore, but, up there. It's just not right to have him around, right?
Right.
I bet you some of his teammates are like, man, this is uncomfortable. Our captain, a player that's played every minute, he was always counted on, and here he is, not able to even get a sniff. You've got to cut that out. I don't want to call it a Cristiano Ronaldo situation, but a similar thing, right? You just need to move a player on. That's one. The other one, and I never, again, likable figure. We all know his story. But I think Christian Eriksen, because that midfield, again, I think if you're going to spend that much money for Mason Mount, you've got to invest in Mason Mount, and you got to hope that he's going to get that midfield to a higher level. You can always play Bruno Fernandes there. He's played there alongside Casemiro. You can play Bruno Fernandes almost everywhere, and he plays well in that situation. And I would move him because I think you'd still get some money for him, right? He's a very, very good player in the right environment. I think he's going to continue to play well. So I would get some cash and invest in that, especially if Amrabat comes in. I would do that. And the third one, and Van de Beek, maybe an easy one, but I'm shocked and surprised that he's still there, and he probably has to go. But, I had a difficulty looking into it because I don't know how much value you're going to get. This is Manchester United, and are people going crazy and on the phone to Manchester United? We want this player, that player, this player, that player. I'm not so sure. I could have said McTominay, but I think
obviously. But doesn't that just show as well, Janusz, how poor the management and the purchases have been? That there's so many players that even Erik ten Hag's already had to offload, that they were just there still. It feels like he's still got a lot more work to do on top of all of them trying to achieve everything he's going to be trying to achieve this season too on the pitch.
Yeah, short of calling, the Manchester United board is failing Manchester United, but it's close to it because it's so easy to look at the 3 signings. They're expensive. I understand financial fair play, but that team needs a lot more. And look, it's only 2 games. I think Manchester United are going to get better. I have no doubt about that. But a little bit of a warning sign, isn't it, against Wolves at home? And again, look at Manchester United. Look at the issues they had last season away from home against top 10 teams. Look at the first game. Look what happened against, who thought Andrew was going to do such a job against Spurs? But United were horrible away from home last season against top teams, and first game and they lost.
Okay, Janusz, next question, we're sticking with Manchester United, is where do you stand on those that say Andre Onana is overrated?
I think you can ask questions. I mean, I think, maybe they made a mistake when they were looking in Milan for a goalkeeper, right? Because I mean, I think there's zero doubt that Mike Mignon is a much better goalkeeper at Milan. It's not even close.
The Milanisti are like shh.
So obviously, but I mean, if they were going to go after, one from Milan, that's probably the one to go. Look, I mean, they knew they were taking a risk because they wanted to change the way they play. So we have to understand that. I mean, I don't know if we can say that there's some unbelievable howlers just yet. I mean, you're taking on a risk because you want to play a little bit higher. You want the formations to be a little bit tighter, and you want a goalkeeper that's comfortable with his feet. And everybody's going to be making mistakes. Ederson has done. Look at Liverpool and Alisson, right? I mean, already kind of, didn't look great. But I mean, if it wasn't for Alisson last year, I don't know where Liverpool would have been. So I understand that. I also remember how David De Gea started his life in Manchester United. So I'm going to reserve my opinion in terms of saying that this is a bad buy, because I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt simply because I understand the reasoning why Erik ten Hag has done it. He has his philosophy and way of playing, and De Gea was never going to be the man to get him to that next level. Is he going to be able to do it? Who knows? But I understand why he made that move.
Let's talk about Chelsea then. Pochettino still in search of his first Premier League win after 2 games. There was that opening day draw for them against Liverpool. Then they've just been beaten 3-1 by West Ham. Is he going to last the season, knowing what we know about Chelsea?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, here's the worst part. Look, I think Pochettino has given a little bit of identity to this team. Forget the result for a second, because they could have been much different. Here we are talking, but look at the game against Liverpool, right? I mean, the second half, all Chelsea didn't get the result in this game. I mean, God only knows how West Ham were able to win it. When you watch the first 45 minutes, I see what he's doing. I'm not panicking. I still don't have Chelsea in the top 4, but it's one of those situations where I like what he's doing. I think, Jackson looks the part. He's dangerous, hasn't scored. Those issues still there. Enzo, even though he missed a penalty, looks different. I think he looks freer because of what's happening and behind, and he's got the ability to roam a little bit. What I worry and continue to worry, I said the last show, is which Todd Bowley are we going to get? And doesn't this all remind you a little bit of Graham Potter right now? Just too big of a squad. I have to imagine that Pochettino is saying, how do I run a practice just like Graham Potter? I mean, how many players does he have? He's got to have like 35 in there, if not more. I would want to see Pochettino, because Pochettino's got to be smart here. He knows he's at Chelsea. He probably thought after the conversation with Todd Bowley and everybody else, okay, I'm going to get it my way. But now he's going to say, okay, before this goes sideways and backwards, I will go straight in there and say, listen, I am going to play 8 or 9 or 10 key players over and over and over again. Before some of these young players start to come into my my office, knocking on the door, why aren't we playing? And stop buying the players right now. Only buy the ones I need. But I would worry from that standpoint, because I wonder what they're in the business of, Kay. Are they in the business of winning, or are they in the business of buying young players and running a business? I think there's a fine balance, but I think Chelsea are used to winning trophies and not hoping that in 3, 4, 5 years they may win something.
He said afterwards, this is only the beginning. We believe in the process. With time to work, we will be strong and competitive. So we'll see. Chelsea do play on Friday against Luton. So he'll be hoping that will be at least his first win there. Arsenal played on Monday, though, against Crystal Palace. It was an Odegaard penalty. The difference in these two sides, Tomiyasu sent off in this game too. What have you made of Arsenal to this point so far? Because I'm going to ask you your top 4, your very too early top 4 predictions next.
I don't have a problem with Arsenal. I mean, again, dominant. I think in the second half, things went against him. I mean, we can talk about the yellow card. Obviously, I mean, just to get this out of the way, I have a bigger problem with the second yellow card than I have with the throw-in. This is just the referees trying to make a statement because they said about time wasting 8 seconds. What are we going to do now? Count seconds, who had more, who had less, the consistency of it. I had a bigger problem with the second yellow card because I didn't think it was a yellow card. I didn't think it was a foul. It was wasn't it on IU? I still don't get why second yellow card is not reviewable. It should be because it's a massive decision. To me, it should be no different than red card. You sending a player off. You making a significant change to a game and the way the game's going to be played. So that's my thing. If they're going to change anything, I wouldn't count seconds, how long a player has to throw the ball in. But a second yellow card, that's questionable for me and should never have been a second yellow card to start with. So that's my issue. Other than that, I think that obviously changed the game a little bit. And again, I don't have a problem. Arsenal showing character, not conceding, getting 3 points. Look where they are in the table. Good start to the season, not perfect. But by the way, who has been really perfect so far? There isn't one team other than, Brighton maybe, that I could say, wow, they're close to their potential. I don't look at the league this way after 2 games, so I'm not going to pick on Arsenal in any way because point-wise, they're exactly where they probably want to be.
Okay, so it's only 2 games, obviously, as you've said. The top 4 as it stands is Brighton first, Manchester City second, Arsenal third, Brentford fourth, and I'll just throw in 5th and 6th just for good measure, Liverpool and Spurs right now. After the first 2 rounds, who's your top 4 right now?
I'm not changing mine. Mine was Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, and I'm not willing. Obviously, I'm a little bit worried about Manchester United, but again, I know that's going to change. It's very important to find a rhythm of the season, right? And that hasn't happened. And you can almost pinpoint everybody because the bigger, we've had some significant injuries. I mean, players going out, De Bruyne and Ming. I mean, you can go at Buendias and all that. As I've said before, the preparation for the season is different than it's ever been. I think these tours are getting worse. I don't think any of these teams had a proper preseason. A lot of injuries that are happening is because you can't get the fitness. You're traveling all over the world and you're playing, 3-4 days into your preseason, you're playing games. And I think that's why we see it. I think some of the key players on many of the teams have not found that game fitness where they feel that they can be at their best for 90 minutes, not for 60 minutes, not for 70 minutes. And that's happening, by the way, where managers are taking players out because they feel that they've reached their limit. And for that reason, I'm not changing anything because the top clubs showed me that they're still, when it's all said and done, they're going to be there or thereabouts. So I'm not changing anything.
Okay, that's going to be my sticking point for the season on PLExpress with you. Last season, it was Erling Haaland's goal tally. This season, I'm going to keep seeing each round, if you're sticking with Manchester United in the top 4. That can be the question every single week now.
That's a question mark for me. To be honest, Liverpool has been as well. But I mean, good start. They have a big game coming up this weekend too. So, I mean, we have to look at the schedule. By the way, have a look at Brighton's schedule at 8 or 10 games at end of October, November, and early December. I mean, that's going to be their season because it's incredible who they have to play. And that's why sometimes I say to myself, there's going to come a time where Brighton aren't going to be able to do what they're doing right now.
Okay, it's time for final thoughts. And here is where I want to squeeze in what's going to happen now that Kevin De Bruyne is out injured, given how crucial his role is to this Manchester City side, given the fact that players who would be maybe stepping up without him there have moved on. So who do you think is going to be the player to step up in his absence?
Well, last week on the show, we said that we were a little bit critical because we haven't seen it. Granted that it was just preseason and 1 game, right? But we've said that Phil Foden has to step up. He listened, right? I mean, we had some issues, and what a wonderful game. So he's the player. I think players that are going to have to step up is Bernardo Silva, and he will now because psychology is a big thing for me. Just renew his contract, right? We've always, there's always talk about Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain. And, the window's still open. So knowing what I know, expect the unexpected. I still looked at him as a player that, that was unsettled to a degree. But by signing a contract, by the way, even in this last game against Newcastle, massive game, no Stones, no Bernardo Silva, because I think he was ill. So he's going to have to step up. And, they're not done in the transfer window. They're close. I think the deal hasn't been done for Jeremy Doku. It's going to be a wonderful signing. Can play on the right side or on the left side. So obviously, no Riyad Mahrez. He can step in that, which will allow Bernardo Silva to come central and fill in for De Bruyne to some degree. He can play on the left-hand side if Grealish is not 100% fit, which he isn't yet, but that's not unusual, to be fair. And obviously, they probably will still buy another central player at some stage. But as it stands right now, I think it's Phil Foden for me and Bernardo Silva. Those are the two players that will have to carry the team in absence of not just De Bruyne, but Ilkay Gundogan.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.